In today's video, I'm going to show you how to improve online chess so fast it actually feels illegal, and we're covering everything: the opening, the middle game, the end game, tactics, strategy, mindset, how to think during a game, everything you would need to know to reach 2000 Elo so fast it feels illegal. And I do know a little bit about this topic myself. I went from 1100 to over 2000 Elo online in just 7 months, so I do know how to do this essentially. And in this game, I'm facing off versus the Ray Enigma chessbot, and as you can see right now by the game review, I had the better of him for almost the entire game until things went wildly out of control. But that's what you get for playing a very strong chessbot with basically blitz time controls here, but I digress. All right, in the game, I went 1d4, my opponent knight f6. So let's start with the opening. How much do you need to know about openings to get to 2000 Elo in online chess? Well, the truth is you don't need to memorize that many openings, but you do need to understand your openings, understand your plans in the opening, what you're trying to do, the basic patterns, and so on. I'm going to show you how to actually study openings in this game. So my opponent going knight f6, I go c4. This is sort of my bread and butter online these days. I quite like these Queen's Gambit style structures. Pawns on c4 and d4. My opponent goes g6. Now, my opponent is sort of heading for a Grunfeld or a King's Indian defense. The Ray Enigma chessbot seems to like these structures. Now, against any major opening, it's important to have some idea of what you're doing, be it the King's Indian defense or the Caro-Kann or the Slav or whatever it is. And it's not about memorizing moves. It's more about understanding the basic plans and ideas of what you're doing. Now, in this game, I play the move f3, which I quite like. The idea is you're sort of heading for a same-ish variation of the King's Indian defense with f3, e4, knight c3, and so on. So let's see how it goes in this game. Black here goes d6. There are many moves here. d6 is fine. Bishop g7 is fine. c5 is fine. e6 is fine. Knight c6 is fine, and so on. But in the game, d6 was chosen. Black likely heading for a King's Indian defense style setup. From here, we have e4 and then c5. Now here, Black's going for what's called a modern Benini style setup. The idea being the pawn on c5 attacks d4, and from here, I can either leave that pawn on d4 or advance d5. Now, personally, whenever I see a pawn on c5 in these 1d4 style openings, I almost always go d5. So this is a great way to sort of systemize your thought process. If you have shortcuts like this in the opening, where whenever the opponent does XYZ, you do ABC in response, like beating c5 with, say, d5 almost every time, that makes things so much easier. But let's continue. c5, d5, bishop g7, knight c3, and castle. So far, so good. So how much do you actually need to know about openings? Well, the truth is not that much. You don't need to memorize openings that much. It's more about understanding your plans and ideas. So for example, right here as white, this is a very, very common setup that I get as white versus black versus the King's Indian, and so on. So my plan here, I don't have everything memorized. What I do have memorized, sort of, is my general plan for development. Now, if I had, let's say, 5 free moves, what would I do right here as white? Let's pretend black here is going to go back and forth with his king to h8 and g8, back and forth forever. In that case, my plan would simply be knight g to e2, then knight g3, then bishop e2, then castles, then bring out the bishop, say, e3 or g5, queen d2, and then maybe start the attack. For example here, knight g to e2, king to h8, knight g3, king g8, bishop e2, then castles, then bring out the bishop, and then finally bring out the queen. So a great way to study openings is to basically learn, like, if the opponent were to waste a bunch of moves like this, what would I be doing? And one of the most common questions I get in my free online community is simply, what do I do when the opponent plays a weird move, an offbeat move, a move I didn't expect, like king to h8, or knight to a6, or rook to e8, or any move where you can't really understand what's happening right away? And the truth is, if you simply have a plan for what you would do if the opponent wasted a move, when you see these weird offbeat moves, you can kind of just play whatever you would play anyways and just continue. It's not that difficult. But let's go back to this position right here. My opponent castled. Obviously, the Ray Enigma chessbot is rated 2500. He's not going to go back and forth with his king. He's going to play some good moves here. So I proceed with my plan here, that knight g to e2, bishop e2, castles style plan. So knight g to e2 played in the game. My opponent plays the move e6. e6, sorry. Now, real fast, during a game of chess, you need to have some thought process that you use to find your moves. Now, in the opening, if you have these memorized plans, that is certainly one way to go, but really in chess, you need to have a specific 2 or 3 step thought process that you always use. Now, the most popular one is definitely CCTO, checks, captures, threats, optimizations. That one is fine. If you like CCTO, if you like checks, captures, threats, optimizations, go for it. By all means, use it. However, I personally do not like it. I don't use it. I don't teach it to my students. I think there is a better way, and that better way is a new idea that I developed personally called attack or develop. And here's how it works. The first thing you do when the opponent makes a move like e6, always ask yourself, what is the opponent's threat? Your opponent, unless you're 200 ELO, is not going to be a complete dummy. They're going to have, and no offense to 200 ELO players. I mean, we all start somewhere, right? But your opponent most likely is not going to be a complete dummy in the game. They're going to have some idea for why they're playing the moves they make. So my opponent here, e6, what is the opponent's idea? Well, threatening to capture on d5. Is that a big threat for me? The answer is no. I have d5 more than covered. If black were to say take on d5, I take back with the c pawn, and I'm doing just fine. It's part of my general memorized plan in this opening. So first thing you do, does the opponent have a threat? If there is a real threat, let's say black was, I don't know, threatening my pieces, or let's say black took on e4, something crazy. Obviously, then you must ask yourself, what is the threat? And respond to it appropriately, be it taking the knight or whatever else. If the opponent does not have a threat, this is where things get very, very interesting. I see so many players, they struggle to find a concrete plan out of the opening or out of the middle game. And what you want to do is you want to think attack or develop. It's that simple. In chess, I'd say 90+% of moves, if you're not responding to a threat, are simply attacking moves or developing moves. Now, what's an attacking move? That's when you threaten something. For example, I don't know, bishop to g5, putting pressure on that knight, e5, attacking the knight, and so on. f4, threatening e5 under better circumstances. h4, threatening h5. These are all attacking moves. Now, the first thing you do, does the opponent have a threat? If they don't, move on to attack or develop. Then you ask yourself, do I have any good attacking ideas? Again, attacking can be a check, capture, threat, but just think attack. Attack like e5 or f4 or bishop g5 or h4 or any good attacking move in a general position. Now, if you have a good attacking idea, by all means, play it. And when I say good, I mean like a good one. If you don't have a good one, then what you do, you develop. You bring out more pieces. You castle. Or if every single piece is out, you find a better square for an existing piece. Ideally, your worst placed piece. So you find your worst placed piece if you're already fully developed and castled, and you find a better square for it, and you move it to the better square. And you'll be amazed, in 90% of games, 90% of positions, attacking or developing is effectively the right plan. It's actually that simple. It sounds bizarre, but it really is that simple. You attack or you develop, or you respond to your opponent's threat. Chess can be that simple. So here, I don't have a very good attacking idea. My opponent e6, and I don't have a very good attacking idea. Therefore, I simply develop knight to g3. My basic plan, knight g3, bishop e2, castles, and so on. So not attacking, I am developing. Black here takes on d5. What is the opponent's threat? Obviously, taking on e4 or c4, winning a free pawn. Therefore, I take back on d5. C takes d5 is the move. Simple chess. My opponent, knight bd7. Does my opponent have a threat right here? Well, the threat might be knight to e5. That is sort of the main idea behind this move. Now, is that a big deal right now? Well, not really. If my opponent were to go knight e5, they can then go c4, pushing this pawn. But again, it's not that big of a deal. I see no reason to worry. All right, attack or develop. Do I have a good attacking idea? Well, h4 can be played. Threatening h5 is the knight on g3, supports h5, but I don't like it yet. Bishop g5 is also playable, but to me, castling is going to be the first priority. Therefore, bishop e2 is the move. All right, knight to e8 by the opponent. Does the opponent have a threat? Well, the pressuring c3. Is that a big deal? On the one hand, it would damage my pawn structure on the queen side. If my opponent took there, for example, takes, that would ruin my pawn structure a little bit. However, on the other hand, without that dark squared bishop, my bishop on c1 would be a bona fide monster on these dark squares. Black's king would be too weak. Therefore, to me, it's not a real threat. It's an empty threat. That is not the idea. Now, what else can Black do with this move at e8? Well, they can go f5. Is that a threat? Yes, that is. That would be a very active move. Now, fortunately for me, f5 is not that big of a deal. I mean, the pawn on e4 is more than covered right here, so it's not really anything to worry about yet, but that is one of the ideas here for Black. So taking on c3 or going f5, those are the real threats. So, all right, not a big deal. So as White, there's no threat. Can I attack? Yes, I can go h4, but I don't like it. So instead, I simply castle here and develop. Now my opponent, a6. What is the opponent's threat here? Well, the threatening b5. Is that a real threat? Turns out the answer is yes. I go a4. Now, this is one of those shortcuts you can use in certain openings, and this is where it pays to understand the general ideas in the opening, not just the moves. I know in this opening for White, whenever the opponent plays a6, I automatically go a4. That is an automatic response. I don't even think about it. So if you can learn openings this way and learn these automatic responses and plans and ideas where when the opponent does this, you automatically do this. If you can develop those shortcuts in your head, it helps so much. And by the way, I am busting out, in the very near future, I'll be publishing a huge number of opening guides for literally White and Black for every major opening. If you want those guides, just join my free online community. I have an openings course section where I'm busting them out in the very, very near future, next 1 to 2 weeks. So links above, you want to join there, just DM me openings. I'll get you set up with where they'll be and all that stuff. All right, Black here, queen to a5. Does the opponent have a threat? Well, yeah, they do. Taking on c3. Black here is threatening to win the free pawn, the b pawn, like this. Now, is that a real threat? Well, again, Black can win a pawn. That is huge, but he would, in doing so, dramatically weaken the dark swords on the king side. I could go, for example, bishop g5, hit the rook, start an attack on the king side, and so on. So it's a threat. It's not that big of a deal. The computer here even says the move bishop g5 is the strongest, ignoring the attack on the knight and instead threatening bishop to e7, which would be very strong. So this is where when the opponent has a threat, sometimes you can ignore it. It depends on how strong the threat is. For example, here, winning a free pawn but losing that dark square bishop is not that big of a threat and you can ignore it. So this is where you do want to consider as many attacking ideas as possible. And this is a good segue. In more tactical positions like this, it's always a good idea to consider more possibilities, more ideas during the game. In simpler positions, like, for example, here, there's just less going on. You don't need to consider as wide a range of ideas. You can just say castle or go bishop e3 or whatever else. But in a position like this right here, where the opponent does have a threat, winning a free pawn, that's where you want to consider a lot more moves, a lot more possibilities, as the difference here between the best move and the second best move is actually quite dramatic. Now here, bishop g5 again is the best move, but I didn't quite know how to assess it. I'm sort of playing a blitz game here versus Ray Enigma. I'm busting out moves very, very fast. I played the move here, bishop d2. Now, this is a move where I know, no matter what, this move is solid. It's not going to win the game on the spot, but it is solid. I defend c3. The queen has a discovered attack. I'm technically threatening knight to b5, which could be strong in certain lines. For example, if Black wastes a move, knight b5 is technically an option. It's not necessarily that strong yet, but the queen is attacked. The knight's defended by a4 and e2 and so on, and I'm threatening d6 a little bit. So it's an idea. Not that dangerous yet, but it is an idea. All right, Black here, queen b4. What is the opponent's threat? Winning that pawn on b2 effectively for free. Now that is a threat. I mean, Black here would maintain the bishop on g7 and win a free pawn. Therefore, I must respond somehow. In the game, queen c2 was my response. It seemed logical at the time, defending b2 with the queen. All right, Black, queen d4. Very interesting. The queen here going from a5 to b4 to a5 to b4 to d4, hitting the king in the g1 square. So what is the opponent's threat? Obviously, there is a check on the king. If I block the check with the bishop, I lose the bishop. That is no bueno. So Instead of that, I'm kind of forced to go king to h1. Now, this is a very interesting position. With the queen on d4, there are a lot of tactics. So this is where you want to slow down a little bit and consider a lot more possibilities. For example, how can I get perhaps a bishop to the e3 square? Do I need to go rook, I don't know, rook e1 and bishop to d1 and bishop e3? Or queen to c1 and bishop e3? Or a5 and rook to a4? Like, how can I take advantage of the vulnerable placement of that queen? Honestly, that might be one good idea. a5, rook a4, and so on. So again, in these tactical points in the game, you really do want to slow down and consider a much wider range of ideas. All right, black here. Queen to f6, ruining the rook a4 idea by me. The queen flies back, where it does defend the king side. The queen making a very bizarre kind of route so far in this game. That is the Ray Enigma chessbot for you. Now here, I'm going to be honest. I didn't really know what to do. This queen in f6 kind of threw me off. I haven't really seen it that much. So what do you do when you don't know what to do? Great question. In chess, there are times where you simply have to make a move and simply have to find some way to improve. Now, let's use the attack or develop rule. What could I do here to attack? Well, maybe queen c1, threatening bishop h6. Maybe bishop e3, queen d2. Bishop h6, maybe, I don't know, rook a to e1, trying to get some f4, e5 action in. Maybe something else. There's some ideas, but here I really didn't know what the plan was, so I simply went a5 quickly, which was sort of a pass, but I'm clamping down on b6. So there are times in chess where the game is just confusing. You're not going to know everything. You're not literally Hikaru. You're not literally Magnus Carlsen. You don't know everything in chess. So sometimes you just make a move that you think is decent, that maintains all the tension, and you go from there. And trust me, if you're lost, like I sort of was right here, the queen being kind of throwing me off, if you're a little bit lost, the opponent probably is too, unless they're a chess bot. But if they're a human player, they're going to be like a little bit confused too. So don't worry too much. Just make a move. Don't blunder. The game goes on, and so on. All right, black here, h5. What is the opponent's threat? They have a big threat. h4 is the threat, and my knight on g3 would be trapped. For example, if, I don't know, rook a to e1, h4, and my knight doesn't have anywhere to go. Every square is defended or occupied. Therefore, I'm going to have to do something to defend this knight. So rook a to e1 obviously is not the idea here. And again, this shows the importance of always asking yourself, what is the opponent's threat? If you don't do that, you might miss the idea of h4 here and lose the knight on the spot. And I'm sure you're doing it at least some of the time in your own online games if you're watching this right now. So it's just so important. And you may be wondering, do I literally have to ask myself, what is the opponent's threat on every single move? And the answer is yes, but only if you want to win more online games. If you don't, you can do whatever you want. You can just wing it. You can just play things. You can just go rook a to e1 or whatever you want. But good players become good players by not blundering pieces. And the way to not blunder pieces, you kind of have to ask yourself this every single move. And don't worry, you get faster over time. Like when I played this game, I was sort of aware of the idea of the possibility of h5. So I sort of saw it coming. Like you get faster and faster in general at doing these things. Do you think Hikaru in a blitz game is literally asking himself, what is the opponent's threat? Did he go? No, it's automatic. It happens like instantly, but that is an ingrained skill. He's done it over and over and over in hundreds of thousands of games by now. If you know, when you're starting out, when you're 500 elo, 1000 elo, 1500 elo, you sort of do have to force yourself a little bit to do these things, but it does get faster and faster over time. Trust me on that. That's how it worked for me. So you will get better at this. So here, you've got to find some way to defend. Now, king to g1 doesn't look good, as black could go queen d4, force the king back, then h4. For example, like this, that would be a disaster, right? So we can't do that. Instead, I go rook to f2, which I'm going to be honest, this move here, not exactly the strongest. My idea, freeing up f1 for the knight, but there were other ideas. For example, the computer loves f4, intending h4, e5, freeing up e4 for the knight, and I missed that. That was my fault. wasn't thinking correctly, didn't find it, didn't see it, didn't understand how strong it was, and so on. But this shows you how, you know, in every position, especially these tactical points in the game where black's threatening to win a piece, you really do want to consider as many ideas as possible, especially the attacking ideas, because if there's a good attacking idea, that can be an absolute game changer. Instead, rook f2 played in the game, rook to f2. Now my opponent, h4, pushes back that knight. What is the opponent's threat? Win that knight, gotta go back, knight f1, and now h3. All right, my opponent going literally full alpha 0, the h-pawn reaching the final destination on h3 in this game. So what do I want to do here? Well, I can technically trade on h3 like this. That is technically a good move. It might even be the Stockfish favorite move right here. Now, that looks kind of dangerous to me. My kingside being blown open, being wide open, being gaping open. I mean, it's not a good scenario, right? So instead, I play the move g4. Now, why on earth would I play this move? First of all, en passant is not possible. Second of all, this is just one of those scenarios where I have studied this opening a little bit for white. I do sort of know some things here, and I've seen this idea occur over and over and over in online, in professional chess games, in Stockfish analysis, and so on. I've seen this exact theme, black going h3 and white going g4, occur over and over. And I sort of just intuitively knew it would be good here for whites, despite looking very awkward. So this is one of the scenarios where opening prep can last deep into the middle game. This is sort of opening prep. I've seen the idea in the opening occur in a wide variety of positions like this one. And despite being move 19, I played this purely on opening prep, on opening understanding, not memorized moves, but more just the memorized plans and ideas. This is why opening prep, studying openings can be so valuable. You can be on move 15, move 20, move 25, and have a theme, an idea, a motif in your head, like this one right here, if h3, go g4, which can completely change the way you play the middle game. So, you know, opening prep these days is not just about openings. It's not just about memorizing moves in the opening. It's about learning the plans and ideas that actually extend way into the middle game. And if you can learn those ideas, you'll be so much better off in the middle game having learned those opening ideas. Anyways, let's keep going. Black here, queen to h4. What is the threat? My rook on f2 is hanging. Kind of awkward, right? Knight g3. That's one of the only ways to defend properly. Bishop e3 perhaps, but I like this move here. Now, the problem is my knight on g3 is pinned to the rook, but I can sort of work with that. My opponent, knight e5, pressuring some squares here. A pretty good square for the knight overall, pressuring g4, but I kind of got it covered. All right, here, the computer loves rook g1. I did not find that in the game. Instead, queen c1 was my idea, queen to c1. So what am I trying to do here? Well, let's use the attack or develop thinking system. Now, rook g1 would be a good sort of hybrid attacking and developing idea. It's quite attractive. F4 is one idea, but you lose g4. You can't do that, really. It's just too weak. So instead, I go queen to c1. What's my idea here? Well, it's sort of a Magnus Carlsen style move. You slide the queen back to the first rank, but there is a threat. Bishop g5. Just trying to be active, hits the queen, and also I'd have the option of bishop e7 hitting the rook on the f8 square. So in chess, there are some people who say in chess you shouldn't attack, you shouldn't pressure the opponent, you should literally sit on your hands and do almost nothing and wait for a mistake. To me, that is an amateurish way to play. It's just not high-level chess. That's just my personal opinion. It's not how I play, it's not how I teach. What I teach is finding safe ways to create maximum pressure on the opponent. For example, queen c1, a very, very safe move by all means. There's no risk. There's no danger. What it does do, though, is creates this threat of bishop g5, forking the queen and the e7 square, and the opponent has to respond to it, and responding is not easy. It's not easy to find the right move. The opponent might miss it here. If they do, they lose the game on the spot. For example, I don't know, something like this. They lose the game on the spot, effectively, right? But even if they find it, like the opponent in this game, f6, the Ben Feingold counterattack, that is how they defend g5 in this game. But even there, when the opponent does something like that, these moves are so weakening. Just by a simple queen move, queen c1, you can force out a massive weakening move, f6, which gives you other ideas all throughout the game to use and to exploit. Now here, I gotta find the right follow-up. I did not find the best move here. The computer likes rook to f1, or perhaps knight to a4, and knight b6. Instead here I go g5. And to me, in the game, g5 seemed like a pretty solid idea. The idea being I'm trying to open up the king side here, get my bishop active, hit the queen, and so on. But it sort of lets black off the hook, if we're being honest. Black here, c4. He ignores the threats. I take on f6. Black takes back. And now I've got to find some way to continue. Now, the queen side is sort of on lockdown. Yes, I could go knight a4 to b6 and so on, pressuring c4. That might actually be a stronger way to go. I did not find it in the game for whatever reason. Instead, I had a one-track mind, queen to f1. I'm trying to slide over to the king side here, maybe intending ideas like f4, e5. That's sort of what I'm going for, which is a common idea in this opening in general, this same-ish modern Benini style opening. Black, bishop d7. Is there a threat? Not really. Black maybe eyeing b5, maybe trying to activate this rook, so I kind of have a free hand to do whatever I want here. Now here, one of the other ideas behind queen to f1 is I do attack c4, and here I simply take the free pawn. Bishop takes. Again, this is the benefit of finding aggressive, but very safe, but very aggressive attacking moves. Sometimes the opponent just won't see the hidden threat of you attacking a free pawn, and or there's just not a good way to defend, which here there's not. You really can't defend that pawn anymore. There is just nothing. b5, you take en passant. So again, simple threats. Queen to c1, threatening bishop g5. Then queen to f1, threatening c4. And sooner or later, the opponent might just not be able to defend. So that is the benefit of slowly finding more and more attacking ideas like this. The opponent, bishop d7. I take on c4. Bishop takes. Now, losing the bishop pair like this, giving black the chance to win the bishop pair, is controversial. However, in this position, my bishop on c4 is a bad bishop. My pawns on d5, e4, f3, and so on lock out the bishop. Therefore, here I have no worries. If black wants to win the bishop on c4, I'm a-okay with that. Go for it. All right, black, rook c8. What's the threat? Pressuring this bishop. I must defend here. Bishop e2 is my response. Black, king to h8. Kind of a waiting move. I'm not really sure what this does. And here, I'm so ready for f4. I have everything ready for the advance. And I simply go for it. f4 is the move. Here we go. Now, when you play a move like f4, this is so important. There's this concept called overextending in chess. And overextending is when you have a good position and you make a very aggressive, very long-term committal move like this. And as you know, pawns can't go backwards. Once you play this move, you permanently weaken certain squares like g4, like e4, and so on. So when you play a committal pawn attack like this, in many cases, you are all in. You're all in the sense that you have to just go. Like up until here, you can do a lot of things. Once you go f4, you have to make sure you are ready to go, no slowing down. And the idea, of course, is trying to force through e5. So once you play a very committal pawn attack like this, in many cases, you simply have to go for it. So, knight g4. I take the knight. Bishop takes. Bishop takes. Rook to e1. Sliding over, threatening e5 without losing the pawn. Maybe not the strongest idea according to Stockfish, but the one I like here. Sort of developing and attacking. And a side note, real fast. Whenever you can play a move in chess that combines attack with develop, like this, the rook develops to a better square, but it also threatens e5. Those moves are almost always a good option. If you can find those moves and you're a beginner, really try to play them, because those moves, when you attack and develop at the same time, they are so good. All right, e5 being threatened. Black here, bishop d4. What is the threat? Attacks my rook. Is that a big deal? Yes, it is. Bishop e3 blocks the attack. Black, bishop g7 retreats. And now here, e5 is an option. Black has it covered, sort of. But I say, you know what? The attack is justified. We are going for it. e5 is the move. And I didn't even think about it that much. I know if black takes on e5, the position just opens up too much. For example, if d takes, f takes, and bishop takes, that loses the rook on f8. But beyond that, if black takes here, there's just too much pressure on the f-file. I just intuitively sort of know that this is not a good idea for black. I'm just too active with the rooks, the queen, and so on. So therefore, e5 is almost an intuitive, automatic response by me. I know even if I have to sack a pawn, and I might not here, but even if I have to sack a pawn, it's time to go for it. So e5 is the move. Black here, king to g8 is the move. Sort of a waiting move. Now here, I get a little trigger happy. I play the move e6, and this move is very committal. I lose a lot of tension here. I lose pressure on d6. Instead, the computer likes queen d3, which does make a lot of sense. Developing, also attacking g6 and so on. Instead, e6 played in the game like this. My opponent here, one of the ideas, he can take on c3. Now, personally, I'm not that worried about it, as from there, I do have the very strong dark squared bishop. My opponent takes. Bishop takes, b takes, rook takes. Now, little side tangent. In positions like this, where you have opposite color bishops, in the middle game, those games are not drawish at all. They are all-out attacking games. And the reason why is both sides have complete and total domination of one type of color. For me, I dominate, and I mean dominate the dark squares. My opponent dominates those light squares, especially around the white king. So from here, both sides have their advantages. It really is an all-out attacking game. Now here, I go f5. Launching the attack. I mean, no surprise there. That is the entire idea behind white's position right here. f5. Black takes with the rook. Kind of shocking. Going full Gotham chess. I take back. Black takes. And so far, I played a pretty good game of chess, but here I make a massive blunder. I play the move bishop d4, which what could be more natural than that? Attacking the rook, attacking the long diagonal, attacking the weak dark squares. But it turns out this is not the way. It turns out bishop d2 is the way forward for complicated reasons. Instead, bishop d4 played in the game, and this is where the opponent takes over. Bishop f3. I take. Rook takes. And here I blunder again. I take this rook, giving black the massive attack. I had to go queen to e2, and I still have chances here, thanks to my very strong pass pawn on e6, the bishop, and so on. Instead, I take the rook, I blunder, I did not do my CCTOs, I did not check every possible outcome here, I was playing too fast, queen takes, and from there it is simply downhill. Bishop g1, I block the attack, the only move, but now queen to e4, pins the queen, and it's either I lose the queen or I head into an endgame where I am completely lost. Now, this endgame here is totally and utterly lost, as you can see by the eval bar, I screwed this up. However, I do want to give you some general advice in the endgame. If you do reach it, you don't need to be, this is my opinion here. A lot of grandmasters would disagree. My personal opinion, 2000 Elo player, I personally believe endgames are not that insanely important for reaching 2000 Elo. To me, it's more about having a general understanding of the plans, concepts, and ideas. Yes, you do need to know some king and pawn endgames, some king and rook endgames, but not a lot. It's far more about the general ideas and principles. So in the endgame, the first rule is pass pawns must be pushed. The entire goal of the endgame, the entire objective is to get a pass pawn being a pawn that does not have enemy pawns, I can't speak. That does not have any enemy pawns in front of it or to the sides. Like here, there's no enemy pawn on the D file is a pawn that doesn't have any enemy pawns neighboring it, in front of it, and so on. So this pawn here on e6 does not have any pawns on the D file, the E file, or the F file stopping it. My opponent, this pawn on e4, has no pawns on the D file, the E file, or the F file stopping it. My opponent, if they were to go say, I don't know, b6, like this, and I took, these two pawns would be pass pawns. And in the endgame, everything is about, number one, getting a pass pawn, and number two, pushing it down the board as fast as possible. And the reason why is, if you get a new queen, that is the most important factor of all. I mean, a new queen can literally change the game in an instant. Now, beyond that, piece activity is super, super important. You want to have your king centralized in the endgame, your pieces active and attacking very important pawns, and so on. But here, again, it's sort of futile. We continue. Bishop b6. I try to defend. My opponent, knight f6, pressuring d5. And this is the problem. The pawn on d5 can't be defended. I'm going to lose that pawn. Black's gonna get two very strong pawns on d6 and e4. This pawn will fall once this one falls. It's just all kind of downhill from here. It's just not a good position to be in. And before long, the opponent just kind of cleans up, and I've had enough. This is over. The pawn on a5 falls and so on. So I do resign right here to the Ray Enigma chess bot, which I have failed to beat yet, although I've gotten very, very close. We'll see what happens. But this is how to improve so fast at online chess and reach 2,000 Elo so fast it feels illegal. It's when you combine all of these different things, the opening prep based on ideas and plans, not memorized moves. It's that middle game strategy of attack or develop, finding strong attacking ideas that don't weaken your position, that put pressure on the opponent. Because when you put pressure on the opponent, you induce mistakes. It's the end game strategy, understanding not just memorized sequences, but more general ideas. The importance of passed pawns, pushing those passed pawns, king activity, and so on. And the importance of literally every move, asking yourself, what is the opponent's threat? And I mean every single move. Good players become good players by not blundering pieces. That is one of the fastest ways to improve online chess if you're below, say, 1,000 ELO, or even above 1,000, trying to pursue 2,000 ELO. If you blunder pieces, that will stop you faster than anything. And the best way to do it is always ask yourself, what is the opponent's threat? And maybe even do a blunder check on your own moves. But if you made it this far, you now have a very good understanding of essentially everything you need to do to improve online chess. So go study your openings with those general plans and ideas. Go do a huge volume of simple tactical puzzles. And by the way, I do have a shortcut for how to study tactics better than anyone else. And most people do this so wrong. They study all these complicated tactics with 3 to 4 to 5 to 6 moves, 7 moves. In reality, the best way for most amateur players to study tactics is to study a large volume of very simple puzzles. And I do have a technique that allows you to do that. If you want to learn it, go to drmikechess.com, join there. It's my free online community. Text me tactics, and I'll give you that guide. It's in the classroom, but I'll give it to you for free. So, yeah, so that's everything. So if you enjoyed the video, please, by all means, smash that like button, comment down below whatever you want to say. And if you enjoyed this video format where I literally broke down everything you want to know in a game of chess to reach 2,000 ELO, I may start doing more of these, so comment down below if you enjoyed them. And by the way, if you want to work with me directly one-on-one, I have 2 ways I can help you. First of all, I do have a one-on-one coaching program, my 2000 Elo Accelerator. Link is down below, drmikechess.com/coaching. I will literally work on you one-on-one on an ongoing basis. You will get a private community, not my free one, a private one. You'll get my WhatsApp number to ask me questions literally anytime you want. On and on and on. I've got so many ways to help you in that program. And people who work with me do improve very, very fast. Trust me on that. Now, if you're not ready for that, I mean, if you want to apply, go for it by all means. But if you're not ready for a paid program, I also have a free online chess community. It is simply drmikechess.com. It's got almost 1,000 people right now. It's crazy how fast it's growing. In there, I've got free group coaching calls, free courses on tactics, strategy, openings, middle games, end games, and so on. All my YouTube videos are reposted in there as well. You've also got a community of almost 1,000 people who can give you feedback on your games in real time and help you troubleshoot what you're doing wrong and how to improve. It's really a tremendous resource. So again, for one-on-one coaching, drmikechess.com/coaching. That is the link for my 2000 Elo Accelerator. Links down below. For my free online community, drmikechess.com. It's all on the school, SKOOL.com platform. It's free to join. Everything's free in that one. Go there. I'll see you there. I'll see you inside. And until next time, I wish you the best of luck in your chess improvement journey in 2025 and beyond. And I'll see you in the next video.